What if I told you that some of the most chilling encounters in abandoned places have been caught on record, and most people have never heard of them? Tonight, we'll explore 3 disturbing true horror stories that happened in abandoned locations across the country. Make sure you're ready, because what you're about to hear might haunt your thoughts long after it's over. And now let's step into the first one. A drenched evening when Eliza stumbled upon the old church. The weathered stone facade loomed like a specter in the mist, its bell tower reaching toward the sky as if to grasp the swirling vapor above. Across the brittle grass she felt an inexplicable pull, the kind of pull one feels toward a secret long buried. The village had whispered tales about the place, prayers left unanswered, shadows that moved against the light. Local children dared each other to approach, but no one ever entered. With a glance back at the winding path she had taken, Eliza stepped inside, the heavy door creaking ominously as it swung wide. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Broken pews lay scattered about, some overturned, others seemingly left in hasty abandon. Sunlight peeked through the stained glass windows, casting fragmented colors on the floor, but the effect was disconcerting, as if the light itself were struggling to enter. As she moved deeper into the church, there was an unsettling silence that wrapped around her, rendering the world outside an afterthought. The whispers of her village friends echoed in her mind, warnings of the strange happenings that surrounded this place. Some spoke of figures seen in the corners of vision, always just out of focus, while others recalled the chilling sound of children laughing, only to turn and find no one there. Eliza dismissed the thoughts, laughing nervously to herself, her footsteps the only sound breaking the profound quiet. Just as she reached the altar, she noticed a journal resting atop it, worn and dusty. She picked it up, turning the fragile pages, revealing entries written in an erratic scrawl. They spoke of visions, dreadful nightmares that intruded on waking hours, of an entity that demanded attention, a figure that emerged from the shadows. The last entry was frantic and incoherent, hinting at a mounting dread, a warning to never look behind. A chill raced down her spine. She felt an unshakable compulsion to glance back. Slowly, with the weight of foreboding upon her, she turned. There, in the far corner of the church, an unnatural darkness seemed to thicken, pulling at the corners of her vision. A silhouette lurked there, unmoving, just beyond the edges of the feeble light. Panic surged through her. Eliza tore her gaze away and dashed toward the door, heart pounding in her chest. Her fingers fumbled on the ancient handle, dread pooling in her stomach as she felt the heaviness of unseen eyes on her back. Just when the door swung open, a cold voice, almost a whisper, brushed against her ear. "Stay." She bolted into the fog, gasping for air, convinced she could still feel that dark presence at her heels. She ran down the path, the mist coiling around her legs like a serpent. The village lights glimmered in the distance, small beacons of hope, yet as she sprinted towards them, an agonizing realization settled in her mind. She could still hear laughter, soft, taunting, echoing in the air, and with every step she took, the laughter persisted, blending seamlessly into the whispers of the night. As she reached the edge of the village, Eliza stumbled, tripping over her own feet. She looked back one last time, breathless, heart racing. The church stood stark against the fog, yet it was different now. Something about it was more alive, pulsing with a life of its own. The silhouette remained in the window, no longer a shadow but a figure, a person, grinning, watching her. The old church doors creaked open slowly, and the laughter crescendoed, intertwining with the fading whispers of her name, beckoning her back. She stood transfixed for a moment, the horror of her flight replaced by a growing curiosity, a need to understand what called her. Was it truly a nightmare, or had she awakened something that would never let her go? The fog cocooned her as she took a hesitant step back toward the darkness, and the laughter enveloped her like a shroud. Our journey continues. This next abandoned place hides secrets that will send shivers down your spine. Let's step inside. The fog hung thickly over the abandoned nursing home, a mausoleum for lost souls nestled at the edge of a forgotten town. The sun had long surrendered to a dim twilight, casting elongated shadows that skittered across the cracked pavement. The air was heavy with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves, whispering secrets of those who once called this place home. Clara, curious and impulsive, felt an overwhelming urge to explore the decaying structure. Her friends had dared her, coaxing her with tales of the tragic past, stories of patients who had wandered the halls, their cries echoing into silence after the building had been shut down decades ago. Driven by a mix of bravado and dread, she pushed the heavy door open, the sound resonating like a funeral bell in the suffocating silence. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of mildew and time. Each room told a story of neglect, with old wheelchairs abandoned, their wheels frozen in place. Water dripped from broken pipes overhead, creating a rhythmic, intermittent soundtrack that only heightened her unease. Clara's heart raced with every step she took, the floorboards creaking under her weight, as if protesting her presence. As she moved further in, she came across a room adorned with faded photographs, black and white images of smiling faces watching her, each with a story of suffering etched into their expressions. Clara shivered, feeling almost as if those eyes were following her, judging her intrusion. A sudden chill slid down her spine when she noticed one particular photo, a girl with wide, terrified eyes, her mouth agape in a silent scream. Pushing the morbid thoughts away, Clara kept exploring. The dim light from her phone cast eerie shadows against the peeling walls, creating distortions that played tricks on her mind. She stumbled into a common area, where sunlight once danced upon the worn furniture, now surrendered to dust and decay. The silence felt suffocating, as if the building itself was holding its breath, waiting. And then a soft whisper floated through the air, barely audible but undeniably there. "Help me." It was faint, the kind of sound that danced on the edges of comprehension, evoking a shiver of recognition. Clara's heart raced, her instincts screamed at her to leave, to flee this cursed place. But curiosity gnawed at her, urging her to follow the sound. She walked toward the source, the whisper growing clearer, more desperate with every step. It seemed to originate from a room at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar, shadows spilling into the corridor like ink. Clara pushed the door open, her breath hitching in her throat. Inside, a child sat on the floor, her back turned to Clara. The girl's hair was disheveled, matted with dirt. "Please," the child said, "help me." Her voice cracked, and Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The instinct to comfort surged within her, even as alarms blared in her mind. She took a tentative step forward, only to hear the girl continue to plead, the words dripping with despair. "Help me, they won't let me go." Clara's heart sank, the room was suffocating, the air thickening around her as dread enveloped her. "Who won't let you go?" she asked, her voice quaking. The child slowly turned, and Clara's stomach twisted violently. The girl's eyes were hollow, devoid of light, an emptiness echoing in her gaze that sent waves of terror coursing through Clara's veins. "You should leave," the girl croaked, her lips curling into an unnaturally wide grin that cracked her face like fragile porcelain. "They're coming for you now." Clara turned to run, panic clawing at her throat, but the door slammed shut before she could escape. The whispers grew louder, an unholy chorus surrounding her, suffocating her. Shadows curled and tightened, coiling around her limbs like serpents. The whispers echoed in her ears, overlapping, each voice more frantic than the last. "Stay with us." You belong with us." As the darkness enveloped her, Clara felt herself being pulled into an abyss, the weight of countless souls pressing down upon her. Her screams evaporated into the air, drowned by the haunting wails of those who had come before. Clara's last thought was not of fear, but an overwhelming rush of resignation, realizing that this nursing home was not abandoned at all. It was very much alive, and it craved her as it had craved the others. The once comforting silence transformed into a chorus of dread, forever entwined with the echoes of a girl seeking solace among the lost. And now we move to the final abandoned location, where the eerie whispers and shadows hold a story you won't soon forget. The fog rolled in thick, wrapping around the old lighthouse like a shroud. The beam of light from the top flickered, struggling against the encroaching darkness that seemed to seep from the depths of the ocean. Claire had always been drawn to the lighthouse, its towering structure a solitary sentinel over the crashing waves. That evening she felt compelled to explore it one final time before winter fully settled in. As she approached, the wooden steps creaked under her weight, sound echoing strangely in the still air. The door at the entrance was ajar, swinging slightly on rusty hinges as though inviting her inside. She pushed it open and stepped into the cool, damp interior. Dust motes danced in the narrow beam of light that streamed through the windows. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. Claire's heart raced as she climbed the winding staircase, each step resonating with a hollow thud. The light at the top flickered erratically, casting bizarre shadows that twisted and shifted in her peripheral vision. She shook her head, trying to dispel the unsettling sensation creeping up her spine. Was it the old stories she'd heard as a child that haunted her still? Tales of sailors lost to the sea, their souls forever wandering, lured by the light only to perish in the darkness. Reaching the top, she stepped into the lantern room. The view was sweeping, a vast expanse of ocean blanketed in fog. But something was wrong. The lighthouse's light, once a beacon of hope, was now dim and struggling, pulsing like a fading heartbeat. As she approached the old mechanisms, a shiver ran through her as the temperature dropped suddenly. Her breath came out in visible puffs, white clouds dispersing in the chilly air. Then she heard it, a faint whisper. It fluttered at the edges of her hearing, sent chills down her spine. Straining to listen, she could make out words, syllables twisted with anguish and desperation. "Help us. Trap. Lost." The words echoed, reverberating off the walls, pulling her into an abyss of dread. Claire turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. Panic gripped her as she pounded on the heavy wood. "Let me out," she screamed, but the walls began to close in. The whispers grew more insistent, wrapping around her like wet ropes, each syllable tugging at her soul. "Stay with us. Join us." Desperate, she stumbled back, knocking over an old lantern that shattered on the floor, flames licking at the dry wood. The whispers turned to screams, a cacophony of voices rising amidst the crackling sound of the fire. Shadows darted just beyond her vision, hungrily approaching, their faces twisted in agony. Claire's heart raced, pounding in her ears, drowning out the chaos surrounding her. In a moment of terror-driven clarity, she reached for the window. Throwing it open, the wind rushed in, fierce and biting, extinguishing the flames but whipping the fog into a frenzy. She clambered outside onto the narrow ledge, her heart in her throat as she looked down at the jagged rocks below. There, beneath the surface of the water, she caught sight of them. Figures, pale and distorted, faces frozen in a grimace of despair. They reached up toward her, desperate yet distant, the unmistakable imprint of life twisted by despair. With a horrified realization, Claire understood. They were not just lost souls, but the former keepers of the lighthouse, trapped for eternity. She was the next to be claimed. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her screams as she lost her footing, plummeting into the icy depths. The ocean swallowed her whole, and in her last breath, the horrific truth settled in. A new voice joined the chorus of despair, echoing in the darkness below, as she became part of the legend that lured others to their doom. In the lighthouse, the light flickered once more, its beam shining down toward the abyss while the fog thickened, waiting for the next wandering soul. These abandoned places carry memories and secrets. Some are better left undisturbed. If you thought these stories were chilling, wait until you explore more of Shadow Vault stories. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because the next descent into darkness is coming soon.